Okay, we now continue with the Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs 2. There has been a textual change to the resolution concerning IC, concerning clause number E. They would like to add a few phrases. I will read the correct clause. Please pay attention. Taking into consideration nationalist tendencies are increased by a lack of clear direction of EU goals. So you need to add lack of clear direction of EU goals. And ideas by member states which sometimes result in a degree, so you need to add sometimes before results, in a degree of contradiction between EU and member states' policies. I will read the correct clause once again. So, taking into consideration nationalist tendencies are increased by a lack of clear direction of EU goals and ideas by member states, which sometimes result in a degree of contradiction between EU and member states' policies. Okay. Whom from the committee may I ask to read the OCs of the resolution? Sweden.
Thank you, Honorable President, fellow delegates, and distinguished guests. The following operative clauses represent the solution on the question, how should the European Union react in response to growing nationalist tendencies in Europe, written by the Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs 2. 1. Invites all member states to promote the EU spirit through A. Emphasizing the participation to member states of the EU anniversary, promoting for the 9th of May, such as culture events and special school events during which students can discuss about what concerns the EU. B. The establishment of a pan-European Games based on the model of the Commonwealth Games. C. Supporting and emphasizing programs like MEP, which involve people from different European countries. 2. Request all member states to introduce an educational program relating to the structure, aims, and background of the European Union in whatever form they wish to do so, in order to spread a basic knowledge of the European system, including values, culture, history, with any existing programs should be adopted to the EU one. 3. Further request media campaigns encouraging citizens to take an active role in voting about the EU. 4. Completely relies on decision of the Committee of Monetary Affairs regarding how to face economic crisis in order to avoid protectionism. 5. Proposes to establish a research project that provides the European Council with information about what the population desires in order to make the European Council able to introduce guidelines about the future direction of the EU. 6. Recommends an investigation is conducted by a panel looking into new strategies for dealing with social integration, e.g. creating diverse housing in terms of pricing, which attract different population groups. 7. Proposed the establishment of a follow-up plan for arriving immigrants, which would check progress in language and employment and offer emotional support, etc. 8. Strongly reaffirms national powers cannot be transferred to the European Union without a referendum. 9. Calls upon all member states to further pursue the removal of illegal nationalist organizations using current tactics on a wider, more prominent scale. 10. Underlines the necessity of respecting fundamental human rights, which will promote cultural mixing. 11. Emphasize a neutral approach to nationalist regions seeking independence whilst allowing the EU's involvement in peacekeeping in the case of a violent conflict. 12. Instructs the President to forward the resolution to the European Parliament, the European Commission, and the Council of Ministers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who from the committee may I ask to deliver a speech in favor of the resolution? Italy.
Thank you, Presidency. Cooperation, respect, and creativity are the most spoken words in our committee that, discussing in a pacific atmosphere, based the resolution on different opinions of each of us. To define a policy common to all member states, emphasizing common ideas and supporting freedom of expression. Our primary aim was to define causes and consequences of nationalism. We tried to give a concrete solution to it, and at the same time, we let European citizens feel part of their country, because they have to know their background and they have to understand that their country plays a role as single in the European Union. Our final aim is obviously to let everybody feel part of a united family made of solidarity, loyalty, harmony, and cooperation. However, we should never forget about single entities that are what distinguishes us. Actually, what distinguishes us is diversity. So, our committee takes into consideration all I just mentioned and focused on educating citizens in order to let them acquire European conscience, in order to let them know that they are the uncountable diversity that only united can perfectly merge in a bigger drawing, in a global drawing, where every country plays a prominent role. That's why we talked about immigration. It is our belief that it is not enough to say that we just tolerate each other. It is our belief that we have to reach a higher degree of understanding how to live together in a multicultural world, how to accept diversity, because no countries are able and will never be to be alone in a globalized world, as stated by the President of the European Council. We focus on avoiding social discrimination, and that's why we try to merge immigrants and native people in the same district, in order to have immigrants integrated in the society and native people understand that they are not different from immigrants, and their country can just get richer from sharing of culture. So we propose to follow immigrants with a plan, and furthermore, it is my big task to tell you that we do not agree with nationalistic regions seeking independence. Well, we do not condemn them, because we have at heart peace, and we think that divided but satisfied regions are better than those ones that, pretending to be united to their country, just are at war with it. So let me conclude telling you what Herman Van Rompuy said during a meeting in Berlin. Euroscepticism leads to war, and the rising tide of nationalism is the European Union's biggest enemy. Actually, I think that our biggest enemy is fear. That's why I ask you to believe in European Union, and our committee asks you not to walk alone, but to give your hands to your neighbor and to learn finally not to walk, but to run together.
Remind the General Assembly that we do not applaud on speeches. We only applaud after a resolution has been accepted. Please take notice of this. Thank you. We will now begin with the factual questions. Press the button if you wish to have words. Luxembourg, 45.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question concerning OC number 1. Can you briefly explain what the Pan-European Games are? Thank you.
Czech Republic.
Well, the Pan-European Games, then we're looking at the Commonwealth Games. It's a kind like the Olympic Games, but then only on European level.
Hungary, 65.
Thank you, Madam President. My question will be to the committee. What kind of cultural events are they talking about in the first resolution points? Thank you.
Czech Republic.
Thank you, Madam President. With the cultural events, we're talking about opera, theater, arts, music, and all exhibitions like that.
France, 86.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to ask the committee about OC number 6. Who is the panel you're talking about?
Belgium.
Thank you, Madam President. May I just name some experts I have made a list of?
You may.
The experts in the panel, there will be 2 professors of each country. Cyprus, Savas Katsikides, professor in sociology. Yanis Papadakis, professor on demography. In the UK, Linda McKee, professor of sociology at the University of Glasgow. John Hopcroft, professor of demography and social policy. Hungary, Mohamed Yahanfar, professor of demography at University of Budapest. Jean-Louis Fabiani, University of Budapest, professor in sociology and social anthropology, so on and so on.
I believe that the answer is okay. United Kingdom, 20.
Regarding the OC10, which fundamental human rights are in fact being oppressed within the EU?
There has been a point of privilege. Could you perhaps rephrase the question?
Okay. It states that the necessity of respecting fundamental human rights. Please could you clarify which fundamental human rights are indeed not being respected?
Italy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam, sorry. As I said in my introductory speech, nationalistic regions and countries do discriminate immigrants, for example. So that's kind of human rights that is not respected. And that's just the first of a long list that maybe we can discuss later during the discussion.
Greece, 62.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question about OC7. What do you mean with etc.?
There has been a point of privilege. Could you rephrase or repeat the question?
Thank you, Madam President. I know the definition of etc. I just mean, what are you meaning with etc.? Can you fill in the word etc.?
Greece from the committee.
Thank you, Mrs. President. The etc. will mean like people can talk to someone and they get help with making new contacts in their countries, having works, all that kind of things. Seems logical.
Romania, 36.
That's Estonian, right? Thank you, Madam President.
I am very sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, thank you. In your OC number 6, you mentioned voting about the EU. What exactly do you mean by voting? Do you mean electing the members of parliament or voting whether the EU is good or bad? So which questions do you want to put on vote?
There has been a point of privilege. Could you perhaps shorten your question?
Which questions do you want to put on vote?
Perhaps you might save this question for the open debate then. Okay. Lithuania 42. Lithuania 42.
Good. Thank you, Madam President. What are those national powers mentioned in OC 8?
Greece from the committee.
Thank you, Mrs. President. The national powers are powers that are now at the national governments, like for making laws or something. And when those powers, for example, in youth unemployment or something, are going to the European Union and the national government doesn't have to say anything about it, there will be a referendum whether it's going to the European Parliament or not.
Slovak Republic 38.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question to OC number 7. What do you mean by emotional support?
United Kingdom.
Thank you, Madam President. With regards to emotional support, we are talking about if someone is having problems with integration, they may be planned with sessions of counselling or something similar.
This will be the last question for the this will be the last factual question, and Ireland 67.
Okay. In regards to OC4, can you please define protectionism?
Belgium.
Thank you, Madam President. Protectionism is seriously promoting products produced in their own country and having large import taxations on products that come from abroad. Thank you.
This is the ending of the factual questions. We now move on to amendments. There has been an amendment by the Italian delegate, and it concerns operative clause number 6. The delegate proposes to delete the entire clause. May I ask the delegate, please, to step out and have a speech in favor of the amendment? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, for the word given. The operative clause number 6 mentions a diverse housing in terms of pricing. But I would like to put under the attention of the Assembly that creating this diverse pricing would first of all affect negatively the convention of capitalistic market. Besides the fact it is proven that different social classes do not usually agree with coexisting. Therefore, I propose to eliminate the clause. Thank you.
Thank you. Who from the committee may I ask to deliver a speech against the amendment? Or in favor of the clause? Yes, United Kingdom.
Thank you, Madam President. With regards to the clause, may I point out that it mentions, recommends an investigation conducted by a panel. So this is purely an example looking into certain options. That's why there is an investigation. Obviously, I recognise that there will be some flaws in association with diverse housing. That is why there will be an investigation to look into the positive aspects, the negative aspects, and to look into completely other strategies in dealing with this problem. Therefore, this could be completely rejected, and that's what the investigation is for. Thank you.
We will begin the voting on the amendment. I remind you that you can only vote in favor or against. You cannot abstain during amendment voting. Vote. There has been an abstention, please. There are no abstentions during voting on amendments. Whoever has voted an abstention needs to change his vote. Okay. With 71 votes against, 56 votes in favor, the approval of the candidate countries and the approval of the committee presidents, this amendment has been rejected. Thank you. We will now continue with the open debate. Hungary, 64.
Thank you, Madam President. While I do want to state that I am generally very satisfied with this resolution, I have a question regarding the first point, namely the B point. My question would be regarding these pan-European games, that I believe that sports sometimes are like enticing war, and sometimes they create more conflict between the countries. For instance, if you have competitions between numerous countries, some conflicts may arise. If you take into account, if you look at soccer clubs, for instance, there are sometimes very intense rivalries between the fans. And I believe that while it is not certainly, it mustn't be so, it can arise that there will be conflicts between the fans of different countries, which would kind of contradict your goals. Thank you.
Austria.
Thank you, Madam President. It may be true that there are sports which aren't, which were what you described, but these are specific sports. In general, it should be like an Olympic Games in a European system, and Olympic Games are such a beautiful thing, which don't strengthen nationalism at all.
Yes, Latvia.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question about the point number 7, which says that we would offer employment for the immigrants. But in my opinion, one of the main reasons why the nationalism in Europe has risen is because the natives feel that immigrants are taking away all their jobs. So if we start this kind of a positive discrimination, aren't this nationalism and those tensions even more increasing? Thank you.
United Kingdom.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to direct you to that clause that it says check progress in language and employment. We are not suggesting handing out jobs to immigrants. We are simply suggesting that we ensure that immigrants who have moved over to our country are making progress and they are not simply unemployed, because that would not be great.
Spain, 15.
Thank you, Madam President. Haven't you thought about who's going to take care of people that are oppressed, people with nationalist ideas that want independence in any member country?
I'm sorry, there have been points of privilege. Could you please rephrase your question?
Yeah, sure. I mean, these specific areas of different countries that want their independence in Europe. Thank you, Madam President.
Portugal.
Thank you, Madam President. We'd like to point out that unless the citizens are in danger, that means there's a violent conflict, Europe cannot enter in that kind of conflicts inside the nations. If I am Portuguese, I can't understand Spanish feeling. And the nation have the right, and the nations have the right of feeling themselves and solve these conflicts unless the citizens are in danger. Thank you, Madam President.
The former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia.
Thank you, Madam President. With respect to Operative Clause 10, the term cultural mixing implies some sort of a melting pot, which in sociology actually...
There has been a point of privilege. Could you speak louder or rephrase your question, please?
I apologize. Okay. Operative Clause 10 suggests cultural mixing, the promotion of cultural mixing. Now this in sociology actually means or implies some sort of a melting pot. And in this type of melting pot, actually values are lost and identities are changed. Whereas the introductory speech actually spoke in favor of single identities and diversity, whereas this cultural mixing actually means leveling out. So could the committee please clarify? Thank you.
Austria.
Thank you, Madam President. So it's a fact in huge cities there are isolated pockets of immigrants and citizens of a country. We want to mix up these cultures because it isn't the correct solution that different ethnic groups live separated of each other.
Portugal, 24. Portugal.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Madam President. I would like to show my support to the delegate of Spain said. I mean, we have to take into account that there are citizens in countries that are being kind of oppressed by their governments because they are not being listened. I mean, there are nationalist movements in some countries that are not being listened and have to be taken into account in order to make a resolution in which the rights of every citizen of the European Union are respected. Thank you, Madam President.
Italy.
Thank you, Madam President. And I just want to answer saying that the only thing that can change nationalistic tendencies is culture and educate people. So it's the only thing. We focused a lot on educating people in order to let them know that they do not have to discriminate. And so immigrants will not be discriminated anymore in the future.
Austria, 103. 103. Austria, 103. Your microphone is not on. No?
Thank you, Madam President. My question was actually answered by... My question was about cultural mixing, but it was answered.
Okay. Italy, 79.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe the committee seems to have missed quite a key issue concerning its topic. The process required to obtain the validation of certain studying certificates or qualifications between different European countries is currently too slow and therefore represents an obstacle to integration.
There has been a point of privilege. Could you perhaps shorten your question?
I believe it would have been appropriate to address the issue of quickening the bureaucracy involving the validation of studying certificates between different European countries, which wasn't done by the committee.
There has been another point of privilege. Is there a way that you could perhaps pose this question more clearly?
If, for example, an Italian acquires his own graduation within his country, this graduation may not be qualified, be valid in another European country. It would have therefore been appropriate to to just quicken the bureaucracy involving the validation of these studying certificates.
Belgium.
Thank you, Madam President. I just would like to clarify that education was not our question. We had to take care of nationalist tendencies, and your question about further speeding up the equal level of education is for another committee. Thank you.
Luxembourg, 54.
Thank you, Madam President, for the word. My question is about OC3. In my opinion, it doesn't tackle the growing nationalist tendencies, as you say that the media campaign should encourage citizens to vote, but it still doesn't tackle the problem of nationalism, as that means that also people who are nationalists, they can vote, so you just, in my opinion, it encourages also this point of view. Thank you.
Portugal.
Thank you, Madam President. To answer your question, I would like to explain you what we were thinking about when we did this clause. The European Union believes in democracy. While the European Union, one of the most important arguments from nationalist tendencies is the loss of sovereignty from the representatives of the citizens. That is why, when we did this, we thought, well, if the European Union is going to be more important and more important for citizens, then citizens should also be more important for the European Union. Thank you, Madam President.
Slovenia, 1.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question regarding the operative clause number 7. But what means do you intend to check progress in language and employment? Thank you.
United Kingdom.
Thank you, Madam President. We have not specified in what way and to what extent we would have a follow-up plan, because it simply varies for different nationalities. For example, The problem of cultural mixing and social integration with Polish people is a lot more than, say, Americans moving over to the UK. Therefore, a follow-up plan for a person from the USA would be much shorter than someone from Poland. This could extend for 5 years, 10 years, or it could just be one visit when they first arrive at the country.
United Kingdom, 20.
Thank you, Madam President. I feel that there is a conflicting idea in the ICB. Nationalism and solidarity may be similar, but I feel that nationalism and a lack of solidarity are entirely conflicting ideas. And
there has been a point of privilege. Could you perhaps speak louder or shorten your question, please?
Okay, thank you, Madam President. You've implied that nationalism and a lack of solidarity are the same thing. I find that is incorrect, and they are in fact a complete opposite, in fact.
Czech Republic.
Thank you, Madam President. We are not saying that nationalism and lack of solidarity are the same. With the lack of solidarity, we were thinking about, for example, with the economical crisis, a lot of countries had to bail out, for example, Greece, because they were short on money. But a lot of people didn't feel like giving money to Greece. That is the lack of solidarity inside the European Union that we were thinking about.
This will be the end of the open debate. Would anyone from the General Assembly like to submit a speech against the resolution? Yes, Austria.
Thank you, Madam President. Excellencies, Honorable Presidency, fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I want to deliver a speech against the resolution because I think, to my mind, the problem of nationalism is unconditionally a really serious one which has to be fought. But I think the committee did not succeed in addressing the problem at its roots. Because...
Excuse me, but there has been a point of privilege. Could you speak louder?
Okay, I'll try to. Because to my mind, the main problems of nationalism are, as you can observe during history, a swing to right-wing parties has always occurred when people were extremely unsatisfied with the social, economic and political situation within their countries. And as the resolution recommends, these problems are only the solutions addressed are the immigration problem and the lack of the European spirit. And I think it is not only about playing sportive games or
there
something like that.
There has been another point of privilege. Please speak a bit slower, perhaps. And please do not raise the point of privileges when somebody is holding a speech unless you really don't understand what they're saying. Thank you.
It is not so much about playing political, sportive games or something like that. I think there has to be a change in the approach of the EU in the politics. They have to address the social and political problems because people don't think that their problems are addressed and solved because they are unsatisfied with the situation in their countries. And this is why there is a swing to right-wing parties. And these main problems have to be addressed more, I think, and the solutions offered are little effective concerning this point. And yeah, I think we have to fight the problems of nationalism at the roots, and the resolution is not effective enough. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Whom from the committee may I ask to hold a speech in favor of the resolution? Yes, Finland.
Honorable Presidency, distinguished guests, fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Nationalism has been apparent in Europe for hundreds of years. Throughout its turbulent history, it has taken many forms, ranging from the mild to the extreme. Its consequences have been varied and unpredictable. Today, more so than ever, nationalism is exceedingly difficult to define, as it shows itself differently in each member state. The European Union's job is not to judge nationalism or nationalist tendencies, but instead to prevent their possibly negative effects. Nationalism, and a Finland for Finns or Italy for Italians sort of ideal, can often lead to racism and social discrimination. Therefore, our committee sees it as crucial to help immigrants integrate into society and native population, hence our proposal for the establishment of a follow-up plan. We also wish to research other new and more effective strategies for encouraging integration. Along with the rising immigrant population, we see Euroscepticism as both the cause and byproduct of nationalism. The recent financial crisis, fear of progression towards a federation, and a lack of EU spirit have all contributed to the growth of nationalist tendencies. As we have all come to discover, programs like MEP break national and cultural boundaries and give us a sense of unity. We wish to support these programs whilst also encouraging other active involvement, such as participation in the official EU day and voting. In response to resentment of loss of national power, we reaffirm that it cannot be transferred without the use of a referendum. In the future, views of the public shall also be taken more into consideration when introducing new guidelines for the European Union. As apparent in its name, the EU is only a union, and therefore we find it essential that member states not have a say in the specific nationalist tendencies of others. The EU does not have the right to take sides, but will instead, in the case of conflict, act as a mediator in order to sustain its most fundamental goal, peace. Our resolution is in support of a peaceful Europe. We hope, with short-term as well as long-term solutions, such as education, to enable the public to make knowledge decisions concerning nationalism. Our committee chooses not to view nationalism as a problem in need of fixing, but instead as an opportunity. By preventing its bad and embracing its good, we can truly become a Europe united in diversity. On behalf of my committee, I would wholeheartedly invite you to vote in favor of our resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now begin the voting on the resolution. You may vote in favor, against, or abstention. And begin. With 63 votes in favor, 47 votes against, 19 abstentions, with the approval of the committee presidents and the disapproval of the candidate countries, this resolution has passed.